Welcome to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, and today's special guest is Nicole Bitter. Nicole, how are you?
Excellent. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah, it's funny because I knew you. You probably didn't know me back in the day, 2014, 15, I don't know, but I know you ran with White Rock Running Co-op and you're super fast. All those people were super fast, to be honest, with Brent Woodall and some others doing some really fast things. The one thing that stands out, and we had this on, I call it the pre-show, but was you ran this 100 miler. You're an ultra marathoner and or ultra runner, and Rocky Raccoon, I think that was it. Was that it? Yeah, and you get this. I don't know if it was it the U.S. record of 100 miles at the time.
Yeah, in 2015, I had the North American 100-mile record for trails.
Yeah, and I was like, holy cow, we have somebody here that is extremely fast in 100 miles that's got the U.S. record. And so I thought that was really cool. And so I really appreciate you coming on and being able to tell your story. And so really today, what I want to do is get to know you a little bit, just about your journey, when you started to get into running, when you started then getting to trail running, then the ultras and all of that kind of stuff. Did you start in high school? When did you start running?
Yeah, so in seventh grade, I actually wanted to participate in a school sport, and I had never played basketball or anything of that nature, like more like of the ball sports that you would be on a
Hmm.
team for. So I went out for the basketball team, and I quickly got a tap on the shoulder from my gym teacher and said, Nicole, you're not going to make the basketball team. Like you can barely make a layup. But I saw you run the mile in gym class and you were quite fast. You should maybe consider cross country. And I was one of those kids that if a teacher told me to do something, I was going to
Just
quickly
do it.
sign up. I was like a check the box, like gold star kid. So I was like, a gold star, like, how do I get one? So I signed up and started running cross country on the team, and I haven't looked back. So I ran in seventh and eighth grade. My math teacher in the junior high was the high school coach. And early on, he had me training during the winters in Chicago, running around the school after class, like doing workout. So I quickly was like part of the future high school team. He had me training. So he had me start practicing with the high school girls when I was in eighth grade and
Wow.
start doing workouts. So I was hooked. I loved the training, the discipline. I loved that I had somebody mentoring me. From that point on, I was running. I ran in high school and then I ran in college. I ran at Northwestern. So
Okay.
I always gravitated to long distance.
So in high school, did y'all win region, state, do any of that kind of stuff, or how would that look like?
I was pretty fast. I ran a 10:52 in the 2 mile and then a
Okay.
5:08 in the mile. Those were my times. My team was quite good, but we were at a pretty competitive high
Wow.
school. So we weren't like the state champions or anything like that, but we had a pretty good squad. So all my close friends ran. My sister ran with me. So we had a good long distance team. And more than anything, like my memories are less about, I remember those times. Probably those are some of the only times I remember are those
Yeah,
like high school times, but just the memories with friends. And I think it just instilled a lot of good discipline in my life. So I look back upon that really fondly.
yeah, it's what it really, at the end of the day, even today, it's really what it's about to me is the community and the
Yeah.
friends you build. Some of my good friends today are best friends or running friends. So you get to college and what'd you run? Was it a 4 mile or 5K? What was the
I
distance then?
At Northwestern, we had just cross country. We just had
Okay.
club track. So only cross country was a varsity sport. So at the time it was a 6K. It had just
Hmm.
started for girls. And maybe I think that's right. Yes, I think it was a 6K. Oh gosh, it's getting so long. There were different courses
It's hard
depending
to
on
remember.
the event. So I was
Nicole, you're not
lucky
that old,
enough.
by the way.
Oh, yeah,
You're
thanks.
really not.
I I I wasn't super talented by any means. I was able to run at NCAAs once, so that was
Okay.
awesome. But I was like in the top seven in college, but I was not anywhere near like the names like Sarah Hall and Shalane
Yeah.
Flanagan who were running at the same time as me. They were exceptional. I was just thrilled to be able to compete and be on the team.
That's pretty good. Top seven in college. Got to give yourself some credit there. But they
Thanks.
know. All right, you ran in college and you're pretty disciplined. It sounds, and just that. What was next? Like, how did you kind of get into more stuff?
Yeah, I had lived in Chicago for a long time and I had decided that I really did not want to be in such a cold environment. So
Hmm.
I applied to law schools, and they were all in places that were in much better climates, I would say, that were warmer. So I was accepted and I went to Baylor Law School. And at the time, Waco wasn't bougie.
No,
That was before
was it?
the current Magnolia days. I loved going to school there, though. I actually found trail running, believe it or not. In law school, I would run in Cameron Park in Waco, and it
Mm,
actually has an unbelievable trail system. So I started running there, like in between classes, if I would get a break. I just found that I needed that release. So I was thankful. I wasn't competing or anything. I was just
just
trying
having
to
fun.
like make it through the day, right? And get
Hmm.
through my classes, but I always tried to make time to run. So I graduated law school, moved to Dallas, started my first job, and I would just run through the area in between. When I would get a chance, I was in the office, so I would run in the mornings. And I actually adopted a crazy dog who needed a lot of running. So I would
What kind of
run
dog was it?
her sometimes. She actually is 17 and a half, believe it or not. She's still with us, Stella,
Wow.
affectionately called Grandma. She is still alive, believe it or not. And she was some kind of border collie mix. She was a rescue dog. It was part of the Metroplex Muffs, which is now defunct, I believe. But she got me back into training hard. And
Mm.
right around the same time, I had a friend at work who said, "You need to join the White Rock Co op. You would love running with them." So I remember the first day I showed up, I ran with my friend Brent Yost, and I met his wife, Allie Gump, at the time. And I started running there and met all like my longtime good friends and started training with the co op. So around the same time, I adopted Stella and joined the co op. So I started to ramp up my running again.
So was that 2012, 13, something like that? Or because they started in 2011, right?
I
So,
think it was probably 2011. Yeah, it was
okay.
probably
Right
like
when they kicked
early
off.
2012, maybe,
Okay.
or late 2011.
Got it. Got it. So you just started training with them and met some friends there and
Yeah.
hung out.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the group was primarily doing kind of marathons, so I fell
Yeah.
into that. I started just doing some local races. And then I remember I met Nick Polito, and
He's
he
still
was
there.
telling me all about ultra running, and I love to do long distance running. I think I could probably do that. So I signed up and I ran my first ultra was I think in 2012. It was Captain
Wow.
Carl's like
Yeah.
nighttime race, and it was this
Hmm.
K. And
Cool.
so that was when I started running, and I just found that was what I was good at. So
Did you find yourself, are you a competitive, you obviously have a lot of skill, but do you see yourself as a very competitive person?
probably, yes, I'm pretty competitive.
I figured. I was just kind of making sure. And what I remember one time, and every time I would see you, like whether it was on a picture or one of the races, that I forgot what the race was. I think it was in Tyler. It was a while back, but you're running, and I saw you come out, and you fell. And I just remember, I think Nicole falls a lot, but she gets back up and just keeps going with this big
Yeah.
bleeding sore on your knee and gash on your. So it's like,
Yeah. I do not have pretty knees at all. They're a lot of scars. I think I
yeah,
maybe recently broke my nose. I have to go to the doctor.
my
I
God.
fell on my face a couple of months ago, so that's not a pretty story. But yes, I've taken a lot of hard falls trail running, but thankfully I've been able to get up thus far.
So let's go back. So you got into trail running, did Captain Carl's. How'd you do? What were you thinking? It was your first one. It was a ultra, and a
Yeah.
trail, so it'd be different.
At that race, I got second, and I remember I was going very conservatively because I had
Yeah,
never run even over a marathon. I had no kind of idea what to expect, but I remembered finishing and
that's
I was
good.
like, this wasn't really that bad. Like I felt like I was just running with other people because I figured I don't know what I'm doing. So I just tried to stay with a group as long as I could. But yeah, I just remember coming out of that race and saying, I think I can go a lot faster. I think I have a lot more potential. Like I might as well do more of these. So it started me on my adventure. And I mostly stuck to Texas races to start
Yeah,
out with, just because that was all I really knew. I wasn't as familiar with the sport or like the opportunities, right? I had heard of Leadville, but I didn't really know a lot about these races, Western states. So I started doing all of these Texas events and I became very good friends with the race directors of Tejas Trails, Joe
mhm.
and Joyce Presitis. And so I would do their races. I started doing Rocky Raccoon, which at the time was one of the kind of
It
premier
was.
100-mile flatter races in the country. And I just found that that was my thing. I enjoyed the long races, the challenges of it. And it was fun because all my friends would come to
Mhm.
Huntsville and run with me. So we had such like a group of, I had like the perfect pacers. The group would come down and help me out.
It's
I
a
had
little bit
such fun
easier
memories
to
of
go
that.
from Texas or wherever to Houston or to Huntsville
Yeah.
rather than, hey, let's go to Western States and, well,
Right.
fly out there, you gotta
Right.
get all the stuff. So that makes
Yeah.
sense. Um,
Yeah.
so let's go to you decided to at some point do 100 miles. I assume that the Rocky Raccoon win that you got that really good time, that wasn't your first 100.
No, I had
Okay.
run in 2013, 2014, and then 2015. So I won all those years, but each year I got faster. So the 2015 was my
Okay.
fastest, and that's when I set the record.
Let's talk about that then. So whenever you ran those a few times before, did you come into this one thinking, hey, I have a chance to potentially set the record, or was that even a thought at the time?
I knew it was the USATF
Mm.
championships, but in all the prior races, I had felt like I was probably the underdog because there were like really talented runners that would come. So
Yeah.
I did not expect to win the first two times. And then I think in 2015, if I'm remembering correctly, one of the really awesome runners that I looked up to, Liza Howard, was
Yeah.
also. She was running and she was going to go for the record. So I assumed if she's going for the record, I have to go for the record too. But
Oh,
I didn't really realize that I was going to run the time I did because I think I beat the record by over an hour. I don't remember all the details, but I
yeah.
ran a lot faster than I expected to. So I remember finishing and thinking, wow, like I didn't realize I could do that. And now I look back and say, wow, I can't do that anymore. But like at the time, it was
Oh,
like a really exciting feeling.
yeah. What do you feel like whenever you're going through that and you actually did that? Was there more pressure on you now than ever before? Because you have a full-time job, you're an attorney and all these things. I assume that puts a lot of pressure on you in general. And so to be able to do what you're doing, it's got to be, I would assume, a little bit more on you. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it started to get to be a little more pressure, but at the time I wasn't sponsored or anything. So it truly was, it didn't feel like there was as much pressure. I would say
Okay.
at like in 2015, I joined the Ultra team and they're wonderful to work with. They've never held me to any specific expectations. They
That's
give me a
awesome.
lot of freedom. But I think as time went on, it became a little more of a job just because I was starting to run at like the big races like Western States,
Yeah.
UTMB, some of the more premier trail races. And then it's hard to say that it's not stressful because going to a race like Western States, I'm sure there are people that are much better than me, like that feel like they don't have a care in the world. But I don't know how you can be at that race at this point with all the drones and cameras. There's hundreds of people, thousands of people out there. It's pretty stressful in my opinion.
Let's talk about Western States. You've done that a few times or more and got top 10 a few times as well. So talk about I remember watching you the first time you did it, or at least watching on the thing, but talk about that. What was that like? Because you said you were doing all these Texas races. I don't know. I assume that wasn't your first out of state. I'm sure that was I assume, biggest race potentially.
Yeah, it was my second out of state. So
Okay.
it was new to me. In 2014, I qualified for at Rocky Raccoon. I got a golden ticket for Western States. I was at the training camp and I actually realized I had a calf abscess. At the time, Shahid and I were out there together. We were running. We had both gotten golden tickets. And so I realized quickly that 2014, I was going to have to pull out. So I didn't run
Mm.
in 2014. So 2015 was the first time I ran Western. Yeah, it was pretty stressful, but I was very nervous, more so than I think I had ever been. I actually went off course a couple of times just because I think I was so nervous. Not that it had a significant impact, but I look back and think like that course is pretty well marked. I don't know what I was doing, but I just had some other things in my personal life too that were going on. So I think it was a pretty hard race to get through, but I was able to get sixth at that race.
I
And
remember
so
that. That was
I was
impressive.
in 6th.
Super
Thank you.
impressive.
Thank you.
I
So I
mean,
was really surprised.
yeah.
And then
I just
I've
think
gotten two other top 10s at Westerns. So two sixth and one seventh.
Did you love it, or what did you think of the race? At least, yeah, it sounds like you were going through some stressful things the first one, but the second and third
Yeah.
one, did it was it a little bit better, less stress, or was it still?
Yeah. No, it's an amazing experience, but I would say that I probably get pretty nervous throughout different points in the race just
Hmm.
because it just feels like 100 miles. It's if you take it
It is.
aid station by aid station, it's a
Yeah.
better way to digest it and like zone out from that respect. The races where I feel like I'm the most successful are the ones that I can break it into pieces and not think I have to run 100 miles because if you stand at the start line and think that, I think it causes me anxiety at least.
Yeah. Do you still feel that anxiety, like when you go and do the race, like during the race? Because a lot for me, I feel that at first, but then after being in it, the race is what it is.
It's funny. That's what my husband tells me. And I would say that I wish I was the person who didn't feel anxiety during the race, but I probably am that person that does lean towards, am I doing okay? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I do have moments during the race, but I feel like the races where I'm most successful are the ones where I'm just able to completely release and zone out and just realize that, as my husband would say it, it's really adult recess, right? That's
Yeah.
what running should be. It's really,
Exactly.
you shouldn't put pressure on yourself, right? So when I can remind myself of that and make that happen, I feel like that's when I've found I have the most success.
Do you think that, look, you even mentioned you're very competitive. When I race, I might not be competitive against a bunch of people that I know are going to beat me, but I'm competitive about around people that I know I could potentially beat or even
Yeah.
myself in times and stuff like that, even at my age of 50. I think that I forgot my question actually. Sorry.
I actually think I know where you're going with that. So I would say I'm less competitive against other people and just more competitive against
Got it.
myself. It's did I reach my full potential? Like for me, that's what I tend to gauge, like a good race versus a bad race. I want to reach my potential.
Mm.
I would say that's like how I gauge and would say that I'm competitive because at the end of the day, there's always going to be people that are more talented than you
Of
or
course,
people like
always.
that. And so I think being competitive against yourself is probably the best bellwether
I agree.
to have an enjoyed experience.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. As you kind of start thinking about, all right, let's go back a little bit from when you were first starting to run 100s and thinking about training. Was that a lot different than, than training for like a marathon or something like that? I assume it's got to be, but sometimes maybe it's not. There's some of these guys running 100 miles a week just to train for a marathon. And I'm like, that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. I think there's so many different ways that you can go about it. And I've gone about it different ways throughout my life.
Yeah.
I think again, and I actually think you can be successful at training in a number of different ways. So I always gravitated to high mileage, but for me, I felt like having speed in there was one of the key components. That's what was really one of the big benefits for me beyond even the friendships of the White Rock
Yeah.
co-op. That was the most important thing for me, but also that group really kept me fast at the time, and I really
Hmm.
appreciated that. Trying to keep up with all of them was a really good way for me to train, especially when I was doing flatter and faster 100 milers, which was what I gravitated to initially. So for me, I've always been a high mileage person. I've reduced some of the mileage as I've gotten older, just doing more cross training like the elliptical on a more regular cadence. But I probably was one of those 100-mile people 10 years ago. I
Yeah.
liked the mileage. That's where I felt strong.
It makes sense. You were running 100 milers. You weren't running
Yeah,
marathons.
right.
Did you ever run like street marathon type stuff? Or you mentioned you did some stuff in Dallas, but
Yeah, I've run some marathons. Not, I would say that I've never really done serious marathon training. That's one of the things that I
yeah.
probably would say I regret. I would have
Okay.
done some more like bigger cycles to train for marathons, but I have run some marathons.
Okay.
I've done a couple, some threes. But I've never like really committed to the marathon. So one of these days, I wonder if that's something I should do.
Why not?
Check the
You know,
list.
check it off, put a cycle in, a training block in there and see what
Yeah.
you can do. It is fun to watch some of these really fast, like Jim
Oh,
Walmsley
yeah.
or those kind of folks do a marathon or half marathon or whatever just to see. Like
Yeah.
Jim Walmsley still ran like a 10. six or four,
Oh,
one of four or something.
yeah.
It's like,
No, it
dang, dude.
translates. You still have
Yeah,
that
it
speed.
does.
Yeah, they're incredible athletes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. It's fun to watch.
Because you don't see it much. You're like, ooh, I wonder how Courtney Dauwalter's going to do in the marathon. She's done a couple
Yeah.
recently. And just, I think it's
Well,
fun for them to kind
and
of go off.
I think there's something to be said about doing different things. I think when you do the same thing over and over again, at least for me, I think it can get stale. So I
Yeah.
do think spicing up your training, there's maybe an element that makes it more engaging so that you're excited to wake up and do a run. For me, I love to run, so I hope to always run, but I've checked off a lot of the ultras that I really
Mhm.
wanted to do, and there's probably not quite as many that I have on my bucket list at this point.
Okay. Maybe
Yeah.
marathon is coming up. Who knows?
Yeah.
Let's fast forward a little bit to this year. Because from what I can tell, you did and I've never even heard of this, but Fat Dog Trail Race 120. Is that this year?
Yeah.
How fifth place?
So this is one of those things, like, as I've aged, I feel like I've checked off a lot of the things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So Fat Dog is a course in British Columbia. It's
Hmm.
very beautiful. It's long. And it was just one of those things that I said, huh, this would be a fun adventure. It's not necessarily
I
in my
love it.
wheelhouse. I mostly train on roads. So I don't even do a lot of trail running during the week, just with work and things. But I figured it would be a fun experience, and it proved to be so. It was a good challenge. So it took me a long time. I didn't have the running legs that I would have liked for a lot of the race, but it was a super fun adventure. So that was one that it piqued my interest. So I decided
Yeah.
to go for it. I think in the past I chose races based on where I would be really successful and
Mm.
what I thought I would have a good race. Now I don't do that quite as much just because, again, I've run a lot of the flat races and
Yeah.
they were great, but I
And
don't
you're very good at the
necessarily
flat
feel
too, right?
compelled.
So
Yeah.
Western
I'm
States, you were
sorry.
really good at. I said you're really good at the flat.
Oh, thank you. Western States is probably one of those like middle of the road mountain versus flat. It's like it falls somewhere in the middle. I
Thing.
think Fat Dog is more akin to a ton of vert. So a lot of elevation, a lot of
I
climbing.
saw some of the pictures where you were walking, or the video where you were walking. You're like,
Oh,
yes.
yes.
I
I
mean,
was
you
in a
have
lot of
to up those
pain.
mountains. So,
Yeah, for sure. Yes. And I wasn't able to run for a big chunk of the race, which was disappointing to me because that's
mm,
my strength, right? So when you lose your strength, that's not necessarily ideal. So I gave up a lot of time just because my legs weren't able to continue to run. But again, that's what's the beauty of ultra running. It's like a constant challenge, right? It's like a metaphor for life. It's just every day is tough. Like you just keep going. So that's what I've learned. It's like that's why I like doing some of the harder races, like the things that you're maybe not good at, because it's an adventure.
you know, I think I've seen you on this on Instagram, like traveling in quite a bit of different places over this last year or two. And I would like to get into a race so I'll give you an example is from beginning to end of a race that you thought you were going to do well, and maybe you did really well. But I would love to hear Nicole's version of, hey, I started from mile 1 to 7, did these things from, if we're doing a 100 miler, then maybe it's 1 to 20 and then 20 to 40 or something like that. And then when do you turn it on? When do you go? How do you strategically think of those kinds of things? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. It really depends on the race, I would say, just because it's very different. And it depends on how you're feeling on the day. I think that's the other thing with 100 milers is it's so dependent. And so a lot of it's about problem solving, right? But
Yeah.
I will give an example of Javelina. I had a couple of good races a couple of years ago there. And I will say that it's similar to Western states where you probably don't really want to start even thinking about like really going hard until close to 60 or so miles because you really want to be comfortable the first, I would say, two-thirds of the race. Because again, it's really critical that you get to the end portion, right? You don't
That's the
want to
key.
overfire. Like a lot of times athletes that go out way too hard and, they don't have anything left. I find it a little more challenging as I've aged because I feel like sometimes I just don't have it in my legs anymore. So that's
Mm.
something I've had to get used to. But I would say probably in most races, you want to hang out for the first two-thirds. And then the last third is when I would historically go. I will caveat that I think the sport's changing a lot now. Sometimes now it seems like you have to go for it, even to
Hmm.
be in the conversation, right? You'll watch some of the golden ticket races. And you'll see some of the athletes that just have to hold on with the pack, right, in order to even have a chance at that first or second spot. So now that the sport's getting more competitive, I wonder if racing tactics are going to kind of change. But historically, I would say I would be more conservative at the start in order to potentially have that longevity towards the end.
Yeah, I was talking to the winner of the Dallas Marathon, and he was telling me, so it was his first marathon, he's 29, and he ran like a 2:23. And
That's awesome.
yeah, it was really great. He ran in college and ran like 13 minutes, 30 seconds in 5K. So he was really fast. But he was telling me like first 13 miles, 14 miles, he was like, okay, I was just hanging back. I kept the front of the pack just in my sights. I was in fifth or sixth place, but I just wanted to put them in my sights. Right? He knew exactly what he was doing, and he's never even ran a marathon. He's done plenty of racing, as was the point. But because then I had to go to the bathroom, so I stopped in the bathroom. I was like, you don't usually do that if you're going to win a marathon. Right?
Yeah.
And then I got back up with kind of this guy. His name's Joe Hale or whatever. So he's running with him, and then he saw the other three or four guys up front, and he goes, "So mile, I don't exactly know the mile, but 15 or 16, I decided, okay, I'm going to start trying to catch them because there's this hill that started going down." And the point is he had this kind of strategy around, hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to go at mile 16 or whatever the time was. And then from there, I wanted to go and go. And then yesterday I talked to the second place guy, and it's a fun story because the second place guy was with the other guy, and he goes, I'm going to beat this guy at mile 20 to 21. I'm going to let loose. So he let loose and goes really fast. But then the guy, Steven, catches him, another guy, like he was in fourth place, the guy I was talking about before, to the bathroom, and he goes, he really let loose. He started running a 5:07, and then there was no way I was going to catch him. So they all had the strategy of letting loose at mile 22, 23, 24 to see what they had left. But it was just insane to me. There's this whole strategy around the last 3 or 4 miles to see
Yeah.
if they can just waste these guys.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there's so much strategy, but sometimes naivety is the best strategy, I would say. That's what's interesting is sometimes like I do think being a newbie pays
Mm.
off, right? Because you're just in blissfully ignorant. So sometimes I wonder, I do love those days where you're just like out there taking it all in, and sometimes like not having the worry of what's going to
Mm.
happen is what adds to some of the success. So that's why sports are it's running is it's so fun to watch. Is there's always like those stories where you're like, they came out of nowhere and they'd never been heard of. I love that.
Yeah, it's fun at all levels. And
Totally.
I love the competition as well. And I love listening to folks like yourself that can go really fast and then have that strategy. Because a lot of us, when you think of it, 100 miles especially, you really have to nail it down. But a lot of us are just trying to finish the 100 mile. But somebody like
Yeah.
you, some of the elite folks, they want to do more than just finish. They have this
Yeah.
whole tactics and strategy to go mile 1 to whatever, they're doing this, a mile 10 to 15, they're doing this,
Yeah.
and then they're going all out from 20 to 21. 20 to 21 for a marathon, we're all just trying to get through it for normal people. But
Yeah.
not, and like you said, from like the last 2/3, which the last 2/3 is
Yeah.
mile 60 or 70. You still got 30
Yeah.
miles to go,
No, it's
So
just interesting. And it's really where mental toughness comes in, right? It's like about telling yourself that you can do it. I think that's where it's really challenging when your body's failing you, but
yeah.
to trick yourself into believing that you could stay strong, it's tough.
Are you a night runner? Do you like to run at night, or do you care?
No, I run in the morning. So I'm definitely a morning runner. That's why I don't do a lot of trail running, I would say, because I usually
Hmm.
have to be at my desk too early to really get in like a meaningful long trail run in the morning. So I do most of my runs in the morning on the roads.
How'd you get through that 40-hour run? Was it rough, like through the night? Is that like,
It was super rough. Luckily, I had pacers. My
hmm,
husband actually paced me for the first night, and it turns out he was really sick. The whole time I was really worried
wow.
about him because he was behind me, which was really unusual. And I kept like thinking, is he mad at me? What's going on?
Is
Why
it
is
mad
he
at me?
behind me? But
Oh,
he
it's
just
run.
didn't even want to tell me that he was like really sick. So like
Yeah.
poor
Wow.
guy didn't want to leave me out there by myself, but he stuck it out and paced me the whole night. And then I had an awesome pacer during the day. At the last night, I also had a great pacer. But yeah, it was a really long effort, but having people with you always makes
100%.
things a lot better. So I really owe so much of my running, like my strong races, or even my like not as strong, to the people that are willing to be out there. Because running's kind of a selfish sport if you really think about it, like
Of
especially
course.
ultras. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, everybody's coming out
You're,
for you, right? To run
yeah,
your race.
you're lucky when you have all the people surrounding you
Yeah,
and being willing to help. So I think that's where it's really important to make sure you thank them constantly
of
because they're
course.
out there in the middle of the night, like with you, cheering you on. So I know I've been so lucky over the years to have so many good friends and my husband that have been willing to come with me to these events
Yeah.
and support me. And
I
a
remember
lot of the White Rock co-op groups still to this day have been some of the people that have been willing to do that. So I owe them and their families a lot.
that's awesome. I remember one time, so my wife did her first 100 miler at Rocky Raccoon, and
Yeah.
mile, I guess 60 to 100 or whatever, I forgot what it is, but I was pacing her. And at that point, she was just walking. So it
Yeah.
literally took us 7 hours to do 15 miles or 16. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it was at night. And I remember one time she was like, I said, hey, she was like, can you hold this thing? And she's going to get on to me for saying this because I always make fun of her about this. But even to this day, this is a long time ago. But I go, yeah, let me put this thing up that I have. She goes, Chris, you're my mule and you need to help me. And I was like, I'm going to help you. I go, just let me put this in my pocket. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
No, that's the hard part about when you're doing some of these longer efforts. It's tough. You get really
yeah.
tired. I think as a younger person, it used to be easier for me as I've aged, like staying up all night. Oh my gosh, that's
Uh,
really hard. Like, I think
I don't
that's
know how
one
you
of the
do it.
other things that's really
40
challenging.
hours?
Yeah, that was a hard night.
What'd you do after? Did you just go take a shower and go home and sleep? Or, geez, that's what.
Yeah, I did. Luckily, we were really close to where we were staying and
Mm.
just I ate dinner and went to sleep. My husband beat me to sleep. He was like asleep within
Oh, he was
3 minutes
sick.
because he was sick. And I probably an hour by the time I got home, I was asleep. But the funny thing after ultras is a lot of times you don't sleep that well. So it's not
Yeah.
like you just have this blissful like 10-hour sleep, right?
Mm.
You get 3 hours of sleep and all of the adrenaline is still going.
When your body's probably sore in different
Yeah.
places and
Yeah.
everything's feeling weird. Sure. So as you've done really some awesome things, but what's next for you? What are you thinking starting next year? Are you thinking anything or?
Well, that's a really good question. This is the first time that I've been at this impasse where I'm not sure what I want to do. I was just concentrating the last couple of months on getting healthy. I was supposed to
Hmm.
do a race in South Africa and I unfortunately fell pretty hard. And even before that, I was dealing with some long injuries, some lingering things. So I'm trying to make sure I'm healthy. I think I finally am. And so I'm starting to train again, but I've just been giving myself like the time to think about what I really want to do.
Yeah.
I run for Ultra, so I'm very lucky that they're very supportive, but I'm trying to make sure that I contemplate what is going to inspire me and
Yeah.
invigorate me. Because again, let's face it, I've been doing this for a really long time.
You have.
I've been training for since I was probably like 12 years old, even earlier
Mm.
for running. So at this point, I just want to make sure like I'm really thinking about what will bring me joy during the training. So I'm trying to figure that out right now. But there's so many
What
great
brings you
options.
joy? What's as when you say training, is it still running 100 miles a week? Probably.
No, not as much. That's why I think it's challenging. I love to run. I think
Yeah.
I find a lot of joy out of the social aspects too. So
Hmm.
I'm very lucky. I train with Rogue
Okay.
in
Yeah.
Austin. I have a lot of good friends that I run with there. Lucky my husband runs with me when he'll slow down for me. And I have a
Yeah.
young dog that's my new training partner. So running with the company brings me
Mm.
a lot of joy. So I love to train. I think it's about finding the races that inspire me, and that's a little
Got
trickier
it.
at this point. So I'm trying to figure out like exactly what I want to do next.
Do you think it's longer or is it going to be shorter races? What's
You
the?
know, I think probably shorter for a bit. I think I might try and do a fast marathon if I can. So that's might be up my alley.
That might be fun. Wow. One of the things that I've always thought was, you tell me what you think is, look, you have a husband that's also a runner, you're a runner, and I always thought my wife's a runner. It really bodes well for, understanding each other in a lot of different ways. And my wife runs a lot more than I do. I'd go to Boston with her or wherever she goes, I'm going. And for the most part, she'll do it for me. I'm not doing what she's doing. And so what do you think about that? Like just having a partner that really is in the same sphere as you in mindset. I think it's really important, or it helps.
Yeah, it's definitely beneficial. I think I've seen people successful in so
Yeah,
many ways. Like, as long as you have a supportive spouse, I think that's like the key fundamental thing, right? You want a partner that's there for you and believes in you. If you have somebody that's not invested in running, that's hard to be successful, right? So I
yeah,
completely agree with you. It's really fun too to train together. So I
hmm
very much appreciate that we can do that together. A lot of times that's how we spend time together is
yeah,
running. So that's nice. I'm glad we have the common interest. So I think the support is everything. But as long as you have a spouse that's willing to show up for you and be your crew, that's also pretty, like that
yeah,
works as well. So I have some friends whose spouses don't run at all and they're like the cheap crew and they're amazing. Like my husband does a lot of the track races and
yeah,
you should see some of the people that are there, like that are the chief crew. They haven't run a day in their life, but they're
yeah,
like super invested in the event. They're like
yeah.
they're all like some of them 6 days, like doing all the crewing. So as long as you have the support, I think that's like the fundamental aspect that makes you successful.
The volunteering part is the hardest thing to get for some of
Oh
these
yeah.
races and everything else. You'll see some really good race directors and things like that are just they have solid volunteer programs, and I think that's key to making that work. And like you said, things that your husband does with these track things, it can be easy to get people to just volunteer their time to do this stuff.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. What if there's anything that I'm sure I missed a thousand things? As you think about something that I might have missed or something that you would want to talk about, what would you? Was there anything that I missed or?
No, I thought this was great. You did a phenomenal job. I really think at the core of it, like I look back at so many of my memories with the White Rock Co-op, like so
Yeah.
fondly, and all those people that I ran with are they're still lifelong friends. I still talk to some of them on a daily basis.
Really?
I think like
Like
some of the
who?
Brett Yost is a really close
Okay.
friend. So we talk on a pretty regular basis, like most days
That's awesome.
just to say hi and check in. And I still am very good friends with James Aries, Rick Simonson, Connor Drum, the list goes on.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
those people are awesome and still are great. Their wives as well are great friends. So I'm just really I look back so fondly of the memories that we have running and the funny stories. So
I love
yeah,
that. You said
that's
you're
what's
part of
important about running.
it's the community. And you mentioned that you run with Rogue. You've been in Austin what, a couple of years, is that right? Or
4 years.
4 years? Okay. Actually
Yeah,
four.
we were in Phoenix
So
for a bit
yeah.
before. Time
Um,
flies when you're having fun.
how is that? How is that? You go from one place to another. It's gonna be hard at first, soon, but running community in Austin is big.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard. Leaving Dallas was really tough. My husband was in California at the time, so that's why I moved. And then we moved to Phoenix, and finally we got back to Texas.
Yeah.
Happy to be in Austin. But yeah, I would say like when I look back at all of my friends, most of my friends as an adult have been through running. So we were
hmm
just in Phoenix last weekend and we were able to see some of my best friends there, the Currys and Nick and Lauren Curry are great. They're really strong runners as well. My goddaughter Summer is there.
Wow.
So like I've met like such great friends through running. I met my husband through running.
Yeah.
We were both running for Ultra. So again, like all the places I've lived, it was hard to make the moves, but I've met like great people through running. Same with Rogue. We have Coach Kathy and she's amazing and all of the runners there. So yeah, it's just the people you meet through running are they're just I would say they're great eggs. I just
Yeah.
always I have many lifelong friends through running.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's about. And you hang out with people that do similar things that you do, and that's you can bond on running and just talk
Yeah.
about races or how you're feeling or how a workout went, or what to wear. Or, it's a lot of things that you can bond on, and then you start talking about normal things sometimes. And so I love that. Nicole, this has been really great. I really appreciate your time and getting to learn a little bit about your journey and what you've done and what you're going to do. You're a staple here in the DFW area, so I really appreciate you telling your story.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful. I was very honored to be on. Thanks for letting me reminisce about some of my Dallas days.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel and our special guest, Nicole Bitter. Nicole, thanks so much.
Thank you again.